Lately, I have been notorious for having some audio issues. I think they're all going to be taken care of. Announced we can't afford not to record, which is our lead-in on most cases. Welcome everyone to the Misunderstood Podcast. I'm here with Kevin Tosh, and we're going to talk tourism in Franklin County. And got kind of a list here. Came in with this beautiful list, and it's got this look forwards to, is I see kind of here at the top, what we're currently doing, and then if we flip over to the bottom, kind of how these things pay off. And I'm going to throw a curveball in at you at the end. I'd like to know what you can call out to the community, what we in Franklin County, as just the folks who work and live here every day and enjoy the things that go on, what we can do to draw more folks into tourism. So if we start at the beginning, what do you do in tourism? What is your role?
So I'm Director of Tourism and Communications for Franklin County.
Okay.
I started in the summer of 2022, so post-pandemic. But it's a great opportunity to showcase all of the great things that go on in and around Franklin County. And being a lifelong resident, it's really exciting to be able to showcase the fun things that you can do here in Franklin County, but also to showcase the history and the different aspects that as a resident you may not think of every day, that we're so used to a lot of the great things that go on in Franklin County that we really take them for granted on a day-to-day basis. And one of my favorite phrases to use is be a tourist in your own hometown. Go out and do the things that you haven't done. Go out and visit the places that a tourist would go to, but you haven't been in 15, 20, 25 years. The Blue Ridge Institute, Booker T. Washington National Monument, having that monument here in our backyard, and the number of people who've either never been or haven't been since their school took a field trip. So that's really the most fun that I have, is being able to tell that Franklin County story that's ever evolving, it's ever changing, but it's just a lot of fun.
That's all. Now, so since lifelong, so what is it that you experienced when you were young that you've got to re-experience and resell that idea of an experience as an adult? And you mentioned already BRI and Booker T, and if it's those places, what specifically have you been in those places that you're like, oh, mate?
I think just being able to take a new look at things that we're used to on a day-to-day basis. If you look at downtown Rocky Mount, you may drive through downtown Rocky Mount on a daily basis going to and from work. But when was the last time you stopped and went in one of the local shops and talked to the local owners, saw what they were selling? You remember when it was a different store there, and now it's been completely reimagined. If you go out to Smith Mountain Lake, that place is ever evolving, ever changing. It never looks the same. But also going to a place like Philpott Lake and enjoying the peace and quiet that you may not get anywhere else in the county. You may not see another person on Philpott Lake while you're out there. But I think that's, over the last almost 3 years, just being able to kind of look at things through a different perspective, a different lens, so to speak, and just experiencing them, really for the first time again, as a visitor would do so.
How does this tourism piece not just attract individual tourists, but does it attract workers and businesses into the area?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of tourism here in Franklin County. Yes, it's great to diversify the economy. It's great to bring in outside dollars to help bolster our local economy. But it's a really big part of our economic development strategy of recruiting those families, of recruiting those young folks, but also recruiting folks who are deep in their career to relocate here to Franklin County, whether it be to work from home, whether it be to work in some of our great businesses, whether they be small businesses here locally or some of our manufacturing plants as they continue to evolve into automation and things like that. But just being able to be a well-rounded location, a place that people want to work, but a place that people want to live. And with tourism, a place that people want to be able to come and play and enjoy life that's outside of that work schedule. So it's definitely, population attraction, workforce attraction, but also retention, keeping our bright minds here, keeping our young folks here, and showing them that Franklin County does have something to offer. Sometimes you just have to look for those unique opportunities and not take those opportunities for granted.
Okay. Now, you mentioned like staying here to do a vacation. So if you were doing a staycation, and I know I've done this like on Smith Mountain Lake, but if I was going to leave my house, spend the night somewhere else, any suggestions for places you might want to stay, which parts of the county would be best to be in, and what you might do in those counties if you were planning a staycation for someone?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a resident of the town of Rocky Mount, so I'll kind of take that out. If I'm going to take a staycation, I'm probably going to leave the town of Rocky Mount. A great place to live, great place to enjoy. But one of the mainstays of our tourism economy here in Franklin County are the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs, the VRBOs. And we have such a diverse opportunity. As you said, there are so many on Smith Mountain Lake. You can have that lakefront vacation where you go and you unplug for a week. Maybe you rent a boat, maybe you go fishing with the great fishing that's out there. But kind of something that would be a little bit off the radar is going out to places, whether it be Ferrum or Callaway. That we've got some great mountain cabins that are out there, or whole homes that you could take your entire family to, and kind of experience some of the great things. We talked about Philpott Lake,
yes.
But being able to truly unplug and have those adventures at Wade Park. Maybe you enjoy mountain biking. Maybe you just want to stick your toes in the Pig River. Maybe you want to experience those type of things. So I think that's if you're looking at Franklin County, we are a very diverse destination. So I think to fully experience a staycation, you may spend a couple of days in Ferrum or Callaway in the mountains enjoying that, but you can also take a 35-40 minute drive and be at the lake and enjoy all the great things at Bridgewater Plaza. So it's lots of different opportunities. I hate to just pick one because there are so many different opportunities here.
Well, they're great, and kind of puts me in the mind of when people would say there's nothing to do, and like in this world of burnout, like this idea of purposely doing nothing, of unplugging, of putting your feet in the Pig River is really does seem like something that we've got right here at our fingertips, and a chance to relax from so many stressful days. I don't even think I'm taking advantage of them. So, oh man. Things that you're looking forward to upcoming.
Yeah, so we've got so many great initiatives going on. I feel like sometimes I'm drinking from a water hose because we've continued some initiatives that started during the pre-COVID era to the COVID era. One of those being the Mountain Spirits Trail. That's one that I'm very excited about. It's a 3-county initiative, so it's Franklin County, Patrick County, and Floyd County. And this is something that started with my predecessor in tourism and David Rodenizer, but he and the other 3 localities that got together pre-COVID wanted to put something together. Post-COVID, there's 3 new tourism directors in all of those localities. We decided to pick up and carry that torch, but it's really not about the consumption of moonshine. We know that folks, Franklin County being the self-proclaimed moonshine capital of the world, it is a big part of our story. But it's more about the heritage side of things in terms of the family dynamics that were caused by that, the story dynamics. We have the Great Moonshine Conspiracy Trial. We have all of these different ways that it played in the past, but we also have the present day. We have 3 local distilleries here in Franklin County alone. We've got another distiller who's on a nationally televised show on the Discovery Channel. So it's telling that current day story, but also looking at how it's evolving as it continues to go into the future. And the younger generation is starting to pick up the interest in it and starting to pick up the science that goes into this and really getting the small batch. But also, part of the Mountain Spirit Trail, especially in the Franklin County portion, is how it's so deeply entwined with our current economy, with our local restaurant scene, our local music scene. So it's just a unique way and a unique take on owning that story of how moonshine affected our area, the production in both a positive and a negative way at times, and how it affected our community and really shaped different aspects of our community.
That's all. Now, the family that you talked about, the family dynamic. Now, some of these family names are still here. And I guess at least 2 of them are currently legally producing moonshine. How are these stories, how are these family names and these family folks involved in telling the story, involved in assisting you in getting folks here to hear these stories?
So, and that is another great thing about this trail, because our goal with the trail isn't to tell someone else's story. It's to give a vehicle for them to tell their own story. And we really see that at a place like the Alley Cat here in Rocky Mount with the Moonshine Explosion Museum. That's one specific story that's told there, and we'll kind of tease that so you can go to the Moonshine Explosion Museum. It's just being kicked off a great display that they have, audio visual.
At the Alley Cat.
At the Alley Cat, technically right next door to the Alley Cat in the basement there. But again, having the opportunity to showcase what they have to tell that particular story in the way that they want it to be told. Talk about Twin Creeks Distillery. And their deep connection to music, being able to show that connection, but again, giving them the vehicle to tell their story. Law's Choice Distillery, Roosters Rise and Shine with Rooster Hodges, and Franklin County Distillery, which is kind of different from the other three because it came about in a different way. But again, just being able to tell those different stories, but through their eyes and letting them be the ones that tell that story, which again, that's what I think is unique. We're not trying to monetize off of somebody else's story. We're trying to first and foremost tell that unique story of all three localities and how they may have been a little bit different, but also being able to promote those small businesses in the way that they want to be promoted, and that's been a big part of the Mountain Spirit Trail.
Now the other thing is I've noticed, like, we got a chance to speak with Barry La Vaca, Cheryl's Little Shabbies. Is what is tourism doing? Because you got to be doing something, because these folks are popping up. Like, we've got local folks investing in creating local businesses. How has tourism been encouraging that? Not just for some of those names that are attached to those history stories, but it's some of the folks that may have names not as attached are also getting involved in this. How has tourism helped with that?
I think those are two great examples of individuals and groups of individuals who are writing their own story. When you talk about our little Cheryl's, starting with the food truck and having immense success there and really making a name for herself and for the food that they have, but then also coming in to the town of Rocky Mount and opening up an establishment that really does kind of go against the grain. A lot of what you see in rural localities, that rustic look, that rural feel, and she went for it's beautiful in there. It's bright, it's airy. You see that with Crooked Road and Company, but then also Barry La Vaca. You see. That Hispanic flair in there, but also the community embracing it first and foremost, and being invited to different events. But again, just writing that own story and really that entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well here in Franklin County. And again, the community support, I think, is something that's big here in Franklin County. That grassroots effort. Word of mouth is huge. You can do all the advertising you want, but if your friend, if your family member, if your coworker says something positive about a location, about a restaurant, about a shopping experience they have, you're more apt to go there, despite what any ad may be ran. So again, just being willing as a community to uplift not only your community, but uplift the small businesses, uplift your favorite restaurant. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Post those pictures online. That was felt like a big thing years ago of posting every meal that you had online. But really, if you get good service at a restaurant here locally, if you have a great meal, if you have a great experience, don't be afraid to leave a Google review, to post those photos, to tag them in it. So again, that word of mouth is just so big. But I also think that's something that people here in Franklin County do really well. That if they have a good experience, they will let you know about it.
Yeah, that's true. Now, not all of the things that we're looking forward to are food related.
No.
So we've got some physical monuments. We've got some trails. Let's start with some of the trails. So one, I've done some barn quilting stuff before, so I'd like to hear some about the barn quilt trail.
So the barn quilt trail is something that's been in existence for quite some time now, and it was an initiative for the Virginia Cooperative Extension. They really worked to put this trail together, but it's something that we're looking to revitalize. I believe there's 94 different stops on the barn quilt trail throughout all of Franklin County, locations that you can go to and see these beautiful barn quilt displays. So we're looking at creating a digital map where folks can kind of plot out the route or see what barn quilts are in their own area. But that's something we're looking to just kind of revitalize and breathe new life into. I'm going to skip down if it's okay. Another thing that we're working on now is that VA 250 initiative. That's a statewide initiative that's part of a nationwide initiative as we head towards 2026, which is 250-year anniversary of 1776. So the U.S. becoming a country, but what's really exciting about the VA 250 is each locality is allowed to create a local committee to, again, tell the story of the locality for roughly that revolutionary period. Now, for locations like Franklin County, who didn't on paper exist at that time, but obviously we know that the land was here and people was here, it gives us an opportunity to kind of, tell that story from many different angles. You could look at it from, people that were settling in the area during this time. You could look at it from people and, indigenous people who were already here and had been here for a long time before. So really, it gives you an opportunity to look at your community, really take a hard look and decide, what do we want to promote? If you look at places like Williamsburg and Yorktown and Jamestown, obviously when you think Revolutionary War, those are very iconic areas. But Southwest Virginia, we were kind of on the frontier, so to speak, and what did that look like? But also kind of evolving from that is the idea of, the American story is still being told. The American story is still a very young story that is being written as we speak. And, where have we come in the first 250 years, in Virginia, in America, but also here in Franklin County. So that's really unique. It's still on the cutting edge as we head towards 2026. But that's something that, that's another way that people can get involved. If you have a passion and want to be part of that local committee, feel free to reach out to me. And we can.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email is always going to be the best way. And it's
right.
Kevin.Tosh, Tosh, at franklincountyva.gov. And if you're interested in serving on that local committee, I think we've got roughly 20 people to this point. You haven't missed any meeting yet at this point. We're still getting folks together. But again, that's a really fun initiative that's coming up. But, two others that are very exciting. The first is an African American Heritage Trail. I know we were talking about it before we come on air, that it's something that's ever evolving. It was started by a Ferrum College student during his time at Ferrum College working with the Blue Ridge Institute. But then that student became an intern at Franklin County in the GIS department, and he continued his work there. And now it's been picked up by the Blue Ridge Institute, and Ms. Paris Swain at the Warren Street Historical Society is helping with that. So we're excited to see that come to fruition, and that kind of slides right into the Raising the Shade with the USCT monument that is just on the horizon. It feels like it'll be here before we know it.
This is a good time. I'm going to take a quick pause and I'll put Brian in and have you come. Let me have you jump on that side.
All right.
Yeah, I'll cut this part out in a minute. I'm not touching any recording buttons.
You're doing all right.
And at that point, I'll cut out and I'll just say, when I hit buttons, things don't always work. Let me make sure everybody's in. Hello. I can hear myself. All right. Let's try again.
Check.
Let me try. Hold on. All right, try again.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2 3.
Move you over. Think I'd be better with this stuff by now. All right.
Check 1 2 3. 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. 1 2 3.
There we go. That sounds better.
Testing. 1 2 3.
Hello. All right. All right. Still recording, but can't afford not to record part 2. So welcome back here on the split part. So there'll be a cut and a coming back in, but it's all going to be one episode. Still with Kevin Tosh, and Brian Moore has jumped in, and we've just kind of settled in on the end of the African American Heritage Trail. And I gotta hear a little bit more about what the story is, if you can remember any of that was brought in. And then we were starting into Raising the Shade separately. So let me get that last. What is the story? Is it about the enslaved folks? Is it about where does it start?
Absolutely. So again, it's an initiative that was started, kind of recapping, with a Ferrum College student by the name of Jalen, who was working with the Blue Ridge Institute, and then he started as an intern at Franklin County and kind of continued this project, and then has moved on to the private sector world, and then kind of passed the torch back to the Institute, and now working with Ms. Paris Swain with the Warren Street Historical Society. But right now it's a very much an ever-evolving trail, and trail is a very loose term. It's a collection of stories and sites, primarily focused around Rocky Mount, but also kind of extends out into the county with some of the schools and the different people and places that really formed that Franklin County story from the African American side. Really looking at that. When you look at the Warren Street period of when the businesses started to pop up, and that's really where that part of the story takes off. But there's also so much of the story that's left to be told, and it's ever evolving. And Paris would be a great person to talk about this opportunity.
So it sounds like it was around 1900, then when the African Americans would start land ownership, to the 1960s where the businesses would have been started developed. And then the black schools and desegregation would probably be about where it would start. Yes. Oh, this is a wonderful story. I'm ready to go on this trail. We got to get her on to kick this one off.
That's right. It looks
Paris,
like it should be close.
There's an invite for you.
But I know she's hard at work with that, especially with the Historical Society, the Warren Street Historical Society, and the collection of information that Miss Darlene had from that period and from that location, and just the stories that evolved from that. So they've been a valuable resource for Jalen when he was working on it, and then Paris kind of picking up the torch and carrying that on as she could. So again, it's all about telling the story through that perspective and through that lens. And I think that's a great segue into the the USCT monument that's coming. That is, it is a story, so to speak. It is a collection of multiple people, but it truly is a look through a specific lens. And I think that it's going to offer so much to our community, but it'll also offer that opportunity of reflection, that different emotions will be evoked for different people.
Yes, and this is one I think Brian and I are both involved in, I guess, really intimately, seeing as moms kind of found several of these soldiers in the first place. And so I know what you mean about different emotions evoked. And I think for my mother, especially having gone through desegregation, this idea that this history lived here in Franklin County, that it was raised here in Franklin County, and then at one point it left to defend this country, and she never heard about it until her 70s, has created this emotion in her that I think is very deep. But I don't think we spend a lot of time talking to folks about the emotions that go along with it. We've really kind of just talked about the history, and the emotion part is so beautiful.
Yeah, well, I was going to say we probably need to backtrack. We do need to mention, since you brought up Darlene Swain, her book. Do you remember, what was the title of it?
About the soldiers?
Yes.
Didn't she do one on Franklin County citizens?
I haven't read that one. So the last one I read was she did a history of African Americans from Franklin County in the military. And those weren't necessarily pre-revolutionary or Civil War, but they were living folks who she was able to get her hands on during the time that she was here. So there's a lot of living folks. I think even our father and most of our uncles on both sides, all over the place, are included in this. So I know she's done more than one. I think I've only read that.
Okay, we have a Fight Without Freedom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just had to mention that since we are throwing names out there.
A Fight Without Freedom is the next book worth picking up to get you primed for this trail that's coming.
And, as we were talking about the kickoff, about the different lenses and being a tourist in your own hometown, the three of us got to experience a couple of weeks ago. You want to talk about walking by a building or driving by a building every day and not really putting a second thought to what we experience with the fingerprints and the bricks. And I think that's another perfect example of something that's kind of ancillary, that it's not directly tied to any specific project or initiative, but it's just to showcase that this exists, this history exists, but also these experiences. Someone could come and put their finger in the fingerprints, of an enslaved person who built these bricks right here in Rocky Mount, and it was eye-opening, but it was also exciting to watch individuals find these fingerprints that we just didn't know to even look for. And it's not that they were being ignored; I don't think anybody knew to look for them.
I knew to look. And so, referring to the building next to, it's Virgil Good's law office, and Virgil Good, I think, was like, hey, come on down and take a look at it. And also, I think there's a current occupant. I can't remember exactly who the current occupant is, but they were also like, yeah, come on down. And the NAACP had invited a speaker in to talk about finding fingerprints of the enslaved folks who worked on building these bricks, making the bricks in the first place, firing them and turning them and making sure they got to the locations. And many of them had left their fingerprints almost like a calling card in these bricks. And some of these bricks and some of these fingerprints are right here in Franklin County as part of your staycation. Take a nice leisurely stroll down Main Street. And at the top of Main Street, you'll see Virgil Good's building. And if you go across the side of the alleyway, you'll be able to find those same fingerprints. So I think that was a nice, almost exactly like you say, an opportunity to just kind of a Saturday morning well spent. And I think the only thing that would have made it better is maybe a cup of coffee from Old Bean or some other downtown eatery would have been the perfect cap to that.
Hot coffee and slave fingerprint.
Well, and I like to think not necessarily. It's remembering that they existed, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Is to wake up to that, and I hope it was more positive. All right, next thing.
I understand what you're saying, and the biggest point is that there's no blame being thrown out. There's excitement in finding history without blaming others for how it came about. So.
Yes.
Again, it was a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, I think the Friends of Booker T. Washington put out a post about when the land was purchased to create the monument. And it kind of evoked the emotion of the land has always been there. Nothing has changed. That the land wasn't created and then the monument built. It's always been there. And the number of years that land existed where nobody acknowledged any part of it. It was just another piece of dirt here in Franklin County. And then this whole process goes into it. But you could say that about many places here in our community. And I think that there's places that exist today that story's being written that, when we're no longer here, will they be remembered? Will they be forgotten type deal?
And I got to tell you, I know the title of this episode already is going to be Writing Their Own Story. Because that has been, it feels like that's the ethos of the tourism.
It's kind of my theme. I know I say people get tired of me saying, but it's not my job to tell the Franklin County story. It's to allow Franklin County to tell its own story to visitors, to businesses, to residents, because everybody's story is different.
And it's wonderful to be able to step outside and just step into so many stories that I didn't know were here. Some of them, like I grew up with, is and took for granted, as you've said before. Let's see. So we talked about the Heritage Trail. Have we gotten enough in on the monument, the U.S. Colored Troop Monument? I know the NAACP we posted the whole video from when they came in and spoke. And
also, raisingtheshade.org is a great place for information. There's a Facebook page. Apparently we have Twitter and Instagram, all at Raising the Shade.
All right. So get out there and seek those stories out, because they're being told right now. They're being written right now. I think we're looking for historians, people who can help dig into the story of some of these soldiers. I think we're looking specifically for veterans who could come out and help tell some of the stories of these veterans who didn't have a chance to have their story told. So come out and join for that one. Help write these stories.
I think 2 weeks ago we actually had a group of Virginia Tech students come out here and work on doing research on several of the 70 men from Franklin County. So it's an exciting process just to see it happening and unfold live.
You've seen those different layers kind of peeled off of it to where we thought we knew what the story was, but as the layers are peeled off, there's so many ancillary stories.
And I think one of the soldiers that the newsletter highlighted, it wasn't such a great story. he was actually dishonorably discharged because he was mouthy. He talked back to his commanding officer, and they discharged him. So,
Yeah. People are people. Now we got one more trail at least on here before we get to like the actual hiking, mountain biking, and all those kind of trails. But we also have the Crooked Road, the actual music trail.
Yeah, so the Crooked Road, which is Virginia's Heritage Music Trail, I think we're in the 20th anniversary this year. And being a lifelong resident of Franklin County, I feel like 20 years ago we heard about it every time we turned around. Everything was Crooked Road. If there was a concert being held somewhere, it was the Crooked Road such and such. And then it kind of fell off. And there's kind of been this resurgence here to celebrate the 20th anniversary. We're the Eastern Gateway right here in Rocky Mount. The Crooked Road starts at the depot and then continues for 333 miles throughout Southwest Virginia through many localities. But again, I think when a lot of people think about the Crooked Road, you think about bluegrass music. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But it really kind of incorporates a lot of other type of music.
I know gospel.
Gospel.
Man, you can't.
Old time music. Find the nuances between old time and gospel, which they kind of take from they're similar, but also the difference between old time and bluegrass. I think when you hear them, it's kind of tough to discern. It's all bluegrass to a lot of people, but being able to go back and say, okay, were the roots of these different trails, but different types of music. But the trail, again, is just looking to connect these rural localities together, give people a reason to kind of travel from locality to locality. So start your adventure here in Rocky Mount, and then you can travel through the Blue Ridge Mountains to Floyd and swing down to Patrick and then continue out into far Southwest Virginia. The initiative was started to preserve that music, of course, but also to uplift Southwest Virginia through, a positive viewpoint of music that whether you're a fan of that particular type of music or not, you can experience it in different ways as you head along the trail. So again, just kind of that resurgence, I think people are going to start to hear that name again, and it's definitely evolving as a much younger crowd is starting to enter into that old time and bluegrass and gospel music genre. It's definitely it's getting a lot younger, which is something that's very exciting to see.
The musicians are.
Yeah,
the folks that are picking up banjos and guitars are.
Right.
Now, I know growing up, I would accidentally run into the Crooked Road, going to Dairy Queen, and there would just happen to be people performing. I'm like, hey, what is this? It's Crooked Road. I'm like, what is this thing? And how do I just happen to run into it when I go to eat? So,
yeah, it's exciting in the sense of that's typically how people interact with it. If you go out to Ferrum College on a Monday night, there's a group of people, especially it's mostly students and community members who just get together and have a jam session.
Yep.
It's different people every week, but it's folks from outside of the region who are going to Ferrum College. It's locals interacting with the college students. If you go to Twin Creeks Distillery on a Wednesday night, they're a who's who of I really want to say world-renowned bluegrass and old-time musicians, national touring artists who may be in there. But then you may also show up on a Thursday morning at the Dairy Queen during the fall and winter, and you may be able to not even get a parking spot because there's people in there listening to that music.
And I like how they do include locals because I've run in there and seen a coworker in there. I'm like, I didn't know you could do that. shout out to Bill Fuller. I've seen him. So. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's hard not to enjoy live music.
You got that.
No matter the genre.
I haven't seen a bad show at the Harvester yet.
No.
It's hard. Man, are there any? Has anybody been bringing up Crossroads? Like, has anybody gone out for a quilt and ended up on the Crooked Road and listened to music? Have anybody?
I definitely think that's the case. Or not realizing, maybe they come to Franklin County and they see the Crooked Road signs. And a lot of times, if they don't know anything about it, they may think it's just something here in the county. And next thing you know, they've started this adventure and they've ended up in other localities. But again, it's kind of that choose your own adventure style. But like you said, the Crossroads and Franklin County, I know kind of off topic a little bit, but it's also, very centrally located. It's an easy drive up from the south, from the Triad of North Carolina, from Charlotte, from Raleigh. It's an easy drive in from Richmond and Tidewater area. It's an easy drive in from Roanoke, especially, and 81 from DC, Charlottesville. We're very accessible to get to, but we're also uniquely located that, we can associate ourselves with Southwest Virginia. We can associate ourselves with the Roanoke Valley. We can associate ourselves with Martinsville, Henry County, Patrick County, and Danville. We can really play with in a lot of people's backyards, so to speak.
Yep.
It's that's what is a lot of fun too, is being able to put those pieces together. That the different parts of our community definitely play well with other parts of our region.
This is definitely.
It brings me back to college. Where are you from? Are you familiar with Rocky Mount? No. Roanoke.
North Carolina, Rocky Mountain.
Yeah. You start Roanoke and you work your way south. Martinsville, Greensboro. Okay, yep, I'm an hour and a half from there.
So let's talk a little bit about what's currently happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got here like agritourism, outdoor rec, sports tourism.
Yeah, really,
what's happening already?
Those are three of the pillars that we kind of operate off of, and the different silos, no pun intended, that we work with is, Franklin County very much known for its agriculture, but being able to connect visitors, being able to connect residents with those farmers and with those producers is been a unique proposition, because a lot of farmers, it is hard work. It takes long hours, and being able to open up those opportunities for the general public to come in and participate in some fashion or form. We have so many farmers markets that have popped up. We've got obviously the one here in downtown Rocky Mount, but you've got the hugely successful one out at Ferrum each and every week. They've opened up one in South Lake and Pinhook. The Westlake on Saturday. So there's so many local farmers markets popping up. Then also farm stores. I would hate to start mentioning since there's so many of them. But also you can go out and we have, if people talk about not realizing your own backyard, we have 2 alpaca farms here in Franklin County. You get 2 opportunities to go out and interact with alpacas. And it's, again, another thing that if you're not seeking it out, or if somebody doesn't tell you about it, it goes back to the adage, as you said earlier, there's nothing to do in Franklin County. You can go and pet an alpaca. That's as far from, but again, connecting those consumers with the producers. And that's continuing to evolve. It seems like, day to day, month to month, there's more localities, more producers here in our region that are starting to be part of that. We've got Barksdale Farm on 220 South. It's a corn maze pumpkin patch that just opened up this year. I think they've got this upcoming weekend and the following weekend, but they're looking to go full blown next year. That we didn't have a pumpkin patch or a corn maze here in Franklin County. People were having to go outside of the county to experience this, and it's something that's brand new. They've kept it somewhat quiet just to keep it manageable this year in their first year as they develop it. But again, it's lots you can do here in Franklin County to interact with our producers and know where your food came from, and be able to support those local farmers and keep that money circulating here in Franklin County.
Yeah.
And then, going on outdoor rec, we're, well known for outdoor recreation. We got multiple opportunities for hiking, for mountain biking, obviously boating, kayaking, canoeing, all of those different opportunities just to get outside. I think when a majority of folks come to Franklin County, whether it be on a weekend vacation or a week-long family stay, they're looking to unplug. They're looking to experience that little slower paced life while still having, access to the restaurants, while still having access to do some shopping if they want to, but really just looking to enjoy that time with their family, in the outdoors. And then, kind of pivoting over to that sports tourism side, that's also where we're looking to kind of capitalize that on a more competitive basis. Last year in 2023, we hosted the USA Cycling Amateur National Championships for road racing. So the top amateur cyclists from all over the United States converged on the Roanoke Valley, but especially here in Franklin County. They started at Wade Park and they kind of went through the Callaway countryside. But you have, these are young athletes who were eventual Olympians, especially as we head into 2028 in LA. We're going to see some of those cyclists competing in the Olympics, and that was right here in Franklin County in 2023 for 2 days of cycling action. So again, being able to expose people who may not have had a specific reason to come to Franklin County, to get their boots on the ground, to experience the beauty, to experience the hospitality of Franklin County is a big part of our sports tourism. Giving people a reason to get here for the first time, because we're confident when they come here for the first time, they're going to be repeat visitors and bring their families. Fishing tournaments, I know it's a long list of them there, but with Smith Mountain Lake, it's a great resource for that. We've hosted, this year alone, we've had the Fishers of Men Legacy Championship. That's an adult and a kid angler. They crowned a national championship here back in July. In September, we hosted the District 5 Championship for Fishers of Men. So that was a 5-state region. They crowned a champion. The Big Bass Tour, it's another one of those things for fishermen. 800 to 900 anglers converging on Smith Mountain Lake for a 4-day weekend. And that's coming up actually this weekend at Smith Mountain Lake. So again, giving people a reason to come to Smith Mountain Lake, and they're competing for over $100,000.
This feels like prizes. 2 different groups of people that would be in the Fishers of Men and then the Big Bass Tour.
Right.
I'm just amazed at all these activities. Now, is there a way that you can see these calendar of events going on?
So the best way is visit Franklin County on Facebook.
Okay.
That's one of the best ways to keep up with a lot of the things that were going on. We just redesigned our website, so we're looking to continue to get that content updated on visitfranklincounty.va.com. But coming up, talking about the fishing side, we're very excited in 2025, next year in the spring, May 17th through the 22nd, we're going to be hosting, it's Major League Fishing. This is the top tier pro fishermen that travel around the country. They're going to be having their all-star event at Smith Mountain Lake.
Okay.
And again, the big part of that is it's going to be 6 days of competition. All 6 days are going to have 8 hours of live stream coverage online. And then we're going to get somewhere between 10 and 12 hours of television coverage on national television that will be focused solely on Franklin County and Smith Mountain Lake. So again, that national exposure of people who maybe have heard of Smith Mountain Lake before, because it is very large and shows up on most maps, but maybe they didn't connect that Smith Mountain Lake was in Franklin County, or that Smith Mountain Lake was close to Rocky Mount. So connecting all of those localities.
Or it's where What About Bob was shot?
That's right, yeah, absolutely. And Lake Effects, a more recent movie. Yeah. So again, those
Kyle Forey, who was in the movie.
Yes, that's right. But again, just giving these anglers who are typically coming in for a sole purpose, and that is to fish these tournaments, giving them exposure to the beauty of Smith Mountain Lake. So when they start thinking about where are we going to go on vacation, where are we going to bring our family back to, well, this was a place that had great fishing, but also was very family friendly and family oriented. So fishing has been a big part of our sports tourism here in 2024. Looking to continue that in 2025, just based on the assets that we have at Smith Mountain Lake, and it's continued to create that buzz in the fishing world. That we've had other tournament organizers that have reached out and are expressing interest in coming here too.
Now I'm going to run you back a little bit to the bike, the cyclists, because I remember the cyclists and it felt like they were everywhere. How in the world did we keep them safe on these little narrow roads?
So we shut them down. It was an extremely coordinated effort. It's something called a rolling roadblock. So they had, we actually coordinated with obviously our local sheriff's department and state police, but we had motorcycle units from our sheriff's department, I think from Martinsville, Henry County, state police, and it was like watching a ballet. There were so many police units in front that would go ahead of them. If there were any cars coming, they would kind of slowly move them over safely to the side. There would be a couple units in the back that would kind of sweep. There would be an ambulance in the back as well, in case, obviously, with cycling, if anybody went down. And then we had course marshals at all of the intersections. That again, there was kind of a method to the madness. As the race would go by, they could open up a section of the road. They could let the cars go through. But again, our sheriff's department, public safety, and the race coordination team did such a good job of minimal distractions. The goal was for the longest somebody would have to set would be maybe 15 minutes.
I got to say it was well done. I don't think I even realized that. And that is amazing. And I guess Franklin County is a great place for this because some of us are used to being stuck behind an international harvester anyways. So that little bit of wait time we've built in.
Absolutely. And talking about the race, one of the unique aspects, kind of an insider look at it, and talking with a lot of the competitors, it was a very challenging course. A lot of these races that they go to, especially either start and end in the more urban areas, so flatter terrain, obviously. In the western part of our county, flat terrain doesn't exist. But if you think about Wade Park, the start-finish line was right there at the entrance to Wade Park, right in the middle of the road. Well, coming that from Rocky Mount towards that entrance is that huge hill. So that's right at the finish line. So they're used to this long sprint to the finish. So there was a lot of strategy that had to go into it of how are we going to go through this climb. A lot of the top cyclists enjoyed that because they knew that they would have an edge on that last hill climb. And then they had one of the closest finishes in amateur racing history. It was like 1,000th of a second. They had to go to the photo finish, and even I, looking at the photo, could not tell which one won. But it was, again, a lot of good publicity from that. Virginia Tourism, if you actually go on their sports tourism site, the picture at the top is a beautiful shot of cyclists in front of Cook's Knob there in Franklin County. It's part of the Sports Virginia tourism video. So we got a lot of great publicity, not only during the event, but now the next couple of years as these shots are continued to use in marketing materials.
Okay, yeah. So be on the lookout. You might have it on your next Peloton update.
That's right.
The Franklin County course.
That's right.
Uphill both ways.
I think a lot of folks, when you think about sports tourism, you think about traveling baseball and softball and basketball. Franklin County, we don't have those facilities. We don't have these athletic facilities, but what we do have are what we call non-traditional sports, fishing, really cycling, mountain biking. But even this past summer, we hosted for the first time the American Jet Sport Association, a jet ski race at Smith Mountain Lake.
Oh, wow.
And so that was quite an adventure, making sure everybody stayed safe there, but it's a world-class organization. Even being able to host that, a lot of localities, obviously, in our area, don't have the facilities that they could host something like that. So being proactive, thinking outside of the box is definitely what we've had to do here, and utilizing what we do have and not focusing on what we don't have.
All right. Now, coming up on, again, you said we won't hold you too much past 45. We're creeping up into it. I wanted to ask, I'm going to go back anyways, agritourism. Mm-hmm. If folks are here and they're starting these farms, and you're like, I came to Franklin County, I bought this small farm, what kind of thing would you start growing first? What would you suggest, or who would you get connected with?
To me, the first step is connecting with Virginia Cooperative Extension. Okay. Your local extension agent, located right behind the courthouse. Mm-hmm. So I would start there.
On Court Street.
On Court Street. So that would be a good starting point to get a good understanding of our local economy and economy of scale there. But then no matter what you do, I would make sure it's a passion of yours. And then get to one of the local farmers markets. You can go to Rocky Mount, you're going to get a ton of exposure. You'd have to pay a small fee. You can go out to Ferrum. I don't think there's even a fee at Ferrum.
And Rocky Mount is most Saturday mornings. And Ferrum is Thursdays.
Yeah, and I think South Lake is Thursday as well out in Pinhook. But that's a good place to get those connections, because probably when you're starting a local operation, especially on a small scale, developing that customer base to where maybe you don't necessarily have the capacity to have to go to the farmer's market because you may be able to sell everything to your customer base that you've already established. And whether it's agritourism or starting a small business, I think having a passion for whatever it is. I think when people try to fill a niche that they don't have a passion for, I think you can see some struggles. I think that you can see it's tough to weather that initial storm of starting a small business. So I think finding what your passion is and then seeing if it's a viable business model, I think is very important. But I think if you don't have that passion for whatever it is, I don't think you're going to see as much success as you possibly could. And that's typically my answer when people say, well, what does Franklin County need? What type of businesses do we need?
Yeah, I do hear that.
We need We need everything. And I would hope that every locality would say that. I mean, you look at restaurants, we saw a huge influx of restaurants,
Yes.
here in Rocky Mount and kind of around, but then you drive by on a Friday night and every one of them are packed. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those, if it's a quality product, if it's a quality business model, I think it will have an opportunity to succeed. And that's kind of my thought is we need people that are passionate about the community and people that are passionate about providing some sort of service, whatever that is. Again, you're going to see those businesses stay open longer in the evenings because they have that passion. It's not just trying to, make a dollar. It's about, providing that service. It's about possibly being open on Mondays. If you ever try to get a meal on a Monday anywhere in the world, it's a lot more difficult because restaurants are closed because it's not as profitable. It's a slow day, but again, having that passion, I think, is huge.
Okay. Now, move towards goals moving forward. You got diversified lodging options. But before you get into that, what is a VBO?
VRBO.
VRBO.
So it's just like Airbnb. It's vacation rental by owner. It's just another company
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I would say probably 90% of our rentals here in Franklin County are Airbnb. Okay. But there are a certain portion, and typically is dropping a little bit, that are on the VRBO platform.
Or another platform.
Just another platform of short-term rental.
All right. Well, yeah, and I flipped over to the back.
Yeah.
Of a wonderful kind of layout of tourism, and if you don't mind, I may ask for a clean version later. And I will post it along with this episode, which, strangely enough, I think we're going to be led in. I know we're led in with a Fairham Farmers Market interview, and we'll probably, after ours, will be another Fairham Farmers interview. But we're kind of closing out on the backside.
Sure.
Closing out with goals moving forward, some of your data that you've got, and describe to us some of the economic tourism.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason that I kind of threw this in here is it's eye-opening for me, starting in 2022 and kind of looking at the impact of tourism on our local economy. We know that people come here and visit, but at what scale is that happening? And first and foremost, the biggest goal that our tourism department has moving forward, is diversifying that lodging option. Right now, we're really dependent on those Airbnbs, which are great. And a lot of folks, when they're traveling, they're looking for those options, lakefront home rentals. But at the same time, we also know that we're facing, housing shortages. We're facing, attainable housing. And we know that every home that becomes an Airbnb may be one less that, a permanent resident could stay. Now, that's not in all the cases. It may just you're renting it out one weekend out of the year, that type of thing. But, having traditional lodging, hotel, resort, something like that here in Franklin County, in multiple areas of the county, I think would start to alleviate some of that stress, while also helping with that event recruitment side of things. Because typically the first thing that especially one of these event organizers comes to the area, well, we need 50 rooms, we need 70 rooms, we need this certain number of rooms that you have to hit before they'll even talk with you. And we have a new hotel that's going to be coming here in Rocky Mount, behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and also hopefully the Morris Hotel downtown. We'll see that completed as well. So there are a couple of options that are coming on the pike here in Rocky Mount, but still looking to diversify that in other areas of the county. And then the second is kind of that larger scale government side of things. Is the tourism department wants to advocate for continued infrastructure improvements that are going to facilitate sustainable growth, and that's the caveat to it, is growth that is sustainable. I'm not saying I want growth that's just rampant. We need to figure out what is sustainable growth in all areas of the county. That may look different in Fairham than it is at Smith Mountain Lake. It may look different in Sontag than it is in Boone's Mill. So figuring out what the capacity is for each locality and making sure that we have the infrastructure to meet those needs. When a business, a hotel, or however you want to look at it, comes in, do we have water and sewer? Are we putting it in the right locations, that would help foster that economic development? Because without our small businesses, without our accommodations, it's kind of tough to have that visitor economy if you don't have a place for people to eat, for people to stay, for people to shop, and for people to play. So having that infrastructure from kind of the government side of things in place is huge, and not just for the obvious areas, but for areas in all of Franklin County can benefit from that.
Now, I'm even just putting it together because I know the police department asked for new radios. And I imagine that was key in making sure that those bikes stayed safe while they were navigating themselves around. So, yeah, that infrastructure stuff that we see happening in the back is really important to keep us going.
It does, and that's the tough sell a lot of times, when you don't see the water lines in the ground, you don't see the sewer lines, you don't see the broadband internet that's going in different places. That's not something you can a lot of times tangibly see. And sometimes they have a large price tag, unfortunately, with them. But the growth that comes with it when it's available, that's what developers are looking for. But again, when I go back, sustainable growth, making sure that we have, as you said, fire and EMS, that we make sure our sheriff's department and local police department has the capacity to meet the needs of the growth that we're looking to have. It kind of has to be across the county growth, so to speak.
No, I was just going to equate it to upgrading our electrical box. We spent all day, $2,000 worth of work, and you show your wife, and she's like, "It's a box."
Didn't we have one?
You didn't see everything that we can plug in the stove now. It won't throw a breaker.
That's a real story.
Yeah. And then kind of moving into the data, I pulled the FY 23-24 because it would give us kind of a complete picture. And it's always, again, I love to look at data. I love to look at how it equates to it. But the tourism budget in Franklin County in FY 23-24 was right at $253,000. And that's all across the board: marketing, personnel, everything. That's all inclusive budget. That's what Franklin County spent on tourism during that time. Just in transient occupancy tax collection, which anytime somebody books a room, whether it be an Airbnb, at one of our local motels inside of Franklin County. So this doesn't include the town of Rocky Mount. So the town of Rocky Mount has their separate collection. But that $253 that the county spent turned into $393,000 roughly in transient occupancy tax collection. So that's direct revenue back to the county on that money spent. So that alone on taxes was $139,000 roughly gained for the county. So
it was 7%.
It was 7%.
So the other 93% remained with the owners.
So when you kind of take that data and you kind of unpack it a little bit, in FY 23-24, right, $5.6 million was spent in Franklin County booking rooms, whether that again be Airbnb or motels. $5.6 million was spent just in that alone. So we spent $253,000 roughly, and that brought in just in accommodations $5.6 million to Franklin County. That again will stay with those Airbnb operators. That will stay with local motels, whether it be the Westlake Waterfront Inn or the Lake Inn, those type of places. And if my math is correct, and somebody will have to fact check this one, but I believe when you look at the ROI on that, it's like 2,100% ROI from what the county spent to what was brought in just, on room accommodations. Now that's not tax collection, so we don't want to get that.
Yeah, so there's other people hands in the pot.
Right.
But for what you took out of the pot, you got back. You encourage more folks to get in.
Absolutely.
What you took out.
So again, that's encourage folks to fact check those, but then kind of looking at the broad base. So Virginia Tourism Corporation, which is our state-run organization, every year gives us a calendar year data. So this is our 2023 data for Franklin County. And Virginia Tourism estimated that $2.8 million in local taxes, so that's going to be sales tax, meals tax, transient occupancy tax, were generated by visitors spending it here in Franklin County. So that's more of that tax. That's coming directly back to the county.
Visitors in this instance would be folks that are at least
50 miles and further.
Okay.
But again, that also they equated out to $1.4 million in state taxes that were collected. $15.3 million in labor income for people here in Franklin County that are associated with the tourism industry, which they have at 532 people are directly employed by the tourism industry. And then kind of that last number there, direct visitor spending. So money that was spent by visitors coming into Franklin County in 2023, they estimated it was $72.2 million was spent by visitors. Wow. Do have a caveat there at the bottom. That does include second home purchases. So if someone lives in Pittsburgh and they buy a home in Franklin County that's not their primary residence, that's considered direct visitor spending because that's obviously a second home, vacation home. So Virginia Tourism has it at $72.2 million is the direct impact of tourism in Franklin County.
All right, and just to be sure, 7 people didn't buy $10 million homes and that was it.
No, they have the full breakdown. Yeah. You can go on Virginia, the VATC.org, and you can click on their data and you can see every locality in Virginia, and it breaks it out from lodging to transportation to food and beverage. They do the whole breakdown for you. And again, that's the best data that we have is what comes from them.
All right. Now, I know the last thing I was going to ask you is what's the call to action for the community? And I'm going to say I heard 2 things right off the bat. The first one is tell your story. Is if you've got a passion, if you've got a story to tell, if you hear somebody else's story and you think you could get out there and tell the story. And the second one is brag, word of mouth. The 2 things I heard, word of mouth. If you see something or taste something delicious, you get on that Twitter and Facebook and you tell them this is good, come here and eat this, or come in and see this barn quilt. How did I do? What are we as a call to action?
You hit the nail on the head there, is being proactive. Google reviews are huge when people are planning those vacations. When you type into Google, as much as I would love for them to type in Franklin County, Virginia, that's probably not what they're typing in. They're probably typing in, what can I do at Smith Mountain Lake? What can I do in Rocky Mount? That's what they're going to be typing in. And then those Google reviews of the different restaurants are going to pop up. And when people are seeing 200, 300 reviews and a 4.8 star rating, they're more apt to say, okay, this is a place that we would like to visit. So again, Google reviews, TripAdvisor, Yelp, be proactive, help out these local small businesses. But I think I would wrap it all up, and whether you're looking at tourism or whether you're looking at just all-encompassing being a citizen of Franklin County, I think it goes back to civic pride. You don't have to agree with everything that the Board of Supervisors does. You don't have to agree with everything that Town Council does. But having civic pride, having the ability to have a conversation when you disagree, the ability to promote things that are good when they're going on, to give constructive criticism, to be willing to participate and volunteer and jump in when it's all possible. But just having that civic pride, I think, is going to go a long way, whether it's in economic development, whether it's in tourism. I think if we have civic pride here, but I think we can always do a better job. As residents, sometimes we say, there's nothing to do here. We've already hit that earlier today, or we like to talk about all of what we perceive or what may be the problems that we have. But sometimes we forget to be thankful for the good things and the good experiences that we have. We all love social media and we all love reading the latest gossip and the latest drama that's going on all around. And sometimes we scroll past the positive things. And I think, again, telling your story, supporting local businesses, keeping as much of your money here locally as possible. You may save $1 on Amazon, but when you need something, you can go to the local store owner and they can, if there's something you can't find here in Franklin County, find the closest, niche store that you can and see if they can work with you and start to, they may not carry the item because they don't know anybody wants it. And I think we see that a lot too.
Yeah, I'll say in Rocky Mountain, it doesn't matter which one. They'll point you in the right direction because they know all each other.
So, right. Yes. I just Angle Hardware just helped me out with some Virginia flags. As like I said, and when he Bob saw me, hey, I got your flags in. That is something you can't replace with Amazon. Amazon's never tracked me down.
Yeah, and I think too, kind of as a concluding point is another big thing that we push in tourism, kind of as an industry, but especially here locally, is getting that visitor or even getting that resident to the next location. If you're in a restaurant, it's always great when the server says, hey, have you been to such and such? And then they go to such and such experience. And then somebody there at the front desk says, well, hey, have you been to here? And just keeping them going along that path. It's kind of a curated experience, so to speak. Again, goes back to word of mouth. When somebody suggests something, typically we take a lot of heart to it, because we usually don't want to suggest something that we know isn't good or somebody's not going to enjoy, because then we're attached with it too. But again, keeping all of that rolling here in Franklin County is huge.
All right. Thank you for your time. This has been Misunderstood.
I heard a man talking, didn't know what he was saying, but it kept on spilling. His words just the same. His mind seemed scrambled like a burned out candle, with half the wick missing and a nothing for flame. Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. It just kept rambling, talking 19 to the dozen, like a worn out needle, tripping right across that groove. He said there's a silence that's creeping in darkness, but why look for answers when there's nothing to prove? Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. If time were elastic, would we dare ask it to hold on to something, for it melts down like ice? And if we could listen, we'd hear back the laughter, 'cause no one ever wades through the same river twice. Give me a savior that takes me away. Give me a blanket and a space for my head. When time descends like an old stage curtain on the back of my eyelids, I'll be in a place instead. When time descends like an old stage curtain on